I did everything right. I was the perfect daughter, the supportive wife, the patient mother. I swallowed my anger, I smoothed over every conflict, and I put everyone else's needs before my own for 40 years. So why do I feel like I am suffocating? This was the confession of a woman I'll call Elizabeth. A 62-year-old retired teacher who sat in my office with tears streaming down a face that had been composed and pleasant for decades. She wasn't dealing with a crisis in the traditional sense. Her husband was fine. Her children were successful. Her health was stable. But she was in the grip of a psychological emergency that Carl Jung, the great Swiss psychiatrist, identified nearly a century ago. She was suffering from the deadly toxicity of being a good woman. Elizabeth looked at me and said something that chilled the room. She said, "I feel like if I don't scream, I'm going to vanish. But I don't know how to scream." This is the unspoken crisis facing millions of women in the second half of life. It is the realization that the personality you constructed to survive your 20s, 30s, and 40s, the persona of the helpful, agreeable, self-sacrificing woman, has become a prison cell in your 50s and 60s. It is a topic that is almost taboo to discuss, because society relies on your silence. Society relies on women like you remaining the good woman because you are the shock absorber for everyone else's anxiety. But I am here to tell you that this role is not just making you unhappy, it is actively dismantling your mental and physical health. I am Carl Jung, and in my years of clinical practice focusing on female psychology and relationship dynamics, I have seen this pattern destroy more lives than almost any other dynamic. I have seen brilliant, vibrant women fade into grey ghosts because they were too afraid to break the rules they learned as little girls. They believe that if they just keep giving, eventually they will be rewarded. But the reward never comes. Instead, what comes is burnout, resentment, somatic illness, and a profound sense of an unlived life. Today, we are going to explore why Carl Jung argued that the second half of life absolutely requires a rebellion. We are going to look at the specific psychological traps that keep you compliant, the dangers of remaining the good woman, and how you can break free without destroying everything you love. Before we descend into these depths, I need you to take a small action for yourself right now. Please click the like button and subscribe to this channel. I don't ask this for vanity. I ask because the algorithms do not prioritize this kind of deep, difficult psychological truth for women over 50. By engaging, you help other women find this lifeline. And please, I urge you to stay with me until the very end of this video. In the final few minutes, I am going to give you a set of specific, uncomfortable diagnostic questions. These questions are designed to pierce through your denial and show you exactly where you are sacrificing your soul for the sake of politeness. You need to hear them. To understand why you feel this way, we have to look at the first danger, which I call the trap of the provisional personality. Jung famously said that the afternoon of life cannot be lived according to the program of life's morning. In the morning of your life, your young adulthood, your primary biological and social task was to build a container. You needed to establish a career, perhaps raise a family, fit into a community, and find a mate. To do this, you developed a persona. The persona is a mask. It is the good woman. She is agreeable. She is helpful. She avoids conflict. She is the peacemaker. This wasn't a mistake. It was a survival strategy. You needed to be liked to survive. The danger arises when you turn 50 and you are still wearing the mask that was designed for a 30-year-old. You see, the skills that got you here are not the skills that will get you through the rest of your life. I remember a client, let's call her Martha. Martha was 58. She was the woman everyone called when they had a problem. She organized the church bake sales. She watched her grandchildren 3 days a week. She managed her husband's doctor's appointments. She was the CEO of everyone else's life. But inside, Martha was seething with a rage she couldn't name. She told me, "I just want to get in my car and drive until the gas runs out." The psychological reality here is that Martha's good woman persona had become a parasite. It was eating her alive. In the second half of life, the psyche demands individuation. This is the process of becoming who you actually are, not who you were told to be. If you resist this, if you insist on being the good woman who never says no, your psyche will rebel against you. It will manifest as depression, anxiety, or sudden, irrational outbursts. You are trying to squeeze a fully formed, complex, aging soul into a costume made for a pleasing young girl. The consequence of staying in this trap is that you become invisible to yourself. You exist only as a utility for others. And here is the concrete rule for this danger. If your identity is built entirely on how useful you are to others, you will cease to exist the moment you stop serving them. The second danger is even more insidious, and it is what Jung called the shadow backlash. The good woman is defined by what she is not. She is not selfish. She is not angry. She is not lustful. She is not greedy. She is not lazy. But here is the clinical truth. You are human. Therefore, you are all of those things. You have anger. You have desire. You have selfishness. When you spend 50 years repressing these traits to maintain your image as a good woman, they do not disappear. They go into your shadow, the unconscious basement of your mind. In the second half of life, the lock on the basement door begins to rust. His shadow starts to leak out. I see this constantly in women who develop psychosomatic illnesses. I worked with a woman named Patricia, 65 years old, who developed severe, unexplained chronic pain and autoimmune issues. Medical tests showed nothing structural. In therapy, we discovered that Patricia was furious. She was furious at her husband for his passivity, furious at her children for their entitlement, furious at society for rendering her invisible. But because she was a good woman, she was not allowed to be angry. So, her body screamed for her. Her inflammation was her rage turned inward. This is the deadly trap of the shadow. If you do not integrate your capacity for badness, your capacity to be disagreeable, to be selfish, to say no without explanation, your body will turn against you. Jung warned that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You might think you are just having bad luck with your health or your moods, but actually, you are experiencing a shadow rebellion. You are holding a beach ball underwater, and your arms are getting tired. The consequence here is physical and mental exhaustion. You are using all your life force to hide your true self. The concrete rule for this pattern is this: your repressed anger is not a poison to be purged. It is a fuel source waiting to be claimed for your own protection. Now, we must discuss a third danger that specifically affects your relationships in the second half of life: the projection of vitality. This is particularly dangerous for single women over 50 or women in stale marriages. When you have spent a lifetime being good and suppressing your own adventurous spirit, your own aggression, and your own power, you often feel depleted. You feel boring. So, what do? You unconsciously look for a man who embodies the things you suppressed. You look for a man who is exciting, powerful, maybe a little bit dangerous or selfish. I have seen countless intelligent, successful women in their 60s fall prey to narcissistic men or financial predators because these men carried the vitality the women had denied in themselves. You project your own gold onto them. You think, he makes me feel alive. No, he doesn't. He is reflecting the part of you that you locked away. I had a client, Judith, a retired lawyer, brilliant woman. She fell for a man who was chaotic, irresponsible, and adventurous. He drained her bank account and isolated her from her friends. Why did she let him? Because being with him allowed her to feel the rebellion she was too afraid to enact herself. She was the good woman, so she hired him to be the bad boy. This is a tragic displacement. The rebellion Jung speaks of is not about finding a rebellious partner. It is about becoming the rebel yourself. It is about owning your own power so you don't have to buy it at a premium from a man who will exploit you. If you continue to look for your spark outside of yourself, you will attract arsonists. The consequence of this pattern is often financial ruin and emotional devastation in your later years, a time when security is paramount. The concrete rule here is simple but hard to swallow. You cannot find your inner fire in someone else's hearth. You must light it within your own belly. The fourth danger is the trap of the matriarchal martyr. This is specifically for those of you with adult children and grandchildren. The good woman script says that a mother's job is never done. It says that a grandmother must be eternally available. Society guilt trips you into believing that if you set boundaries with your adult children, you are abandoning them. This is a lie. I see women in their 60s who are working harder than they did in their 30s. They are funding their adult children's lifestyles. They are providing full-time childcare for grandchildren. And they are emotionally managing their family's crises. And they are exhausted. They are secretly resentful. But they can't stop, because the good woman derives her worth from being needed. If she stops helping, she fears she will be discarded. Let me tell you about Susan. Susan was 70. She had planned to travel, to paint, to finally read the books she had collected for years. Instead, she was driving her grandsons to soccer practice and paying her son's rent because he was between jobs for the third time in 5 years. She told me, "I just want to rest. But they need me." I had to be very hard on Susan. I told her, "They don't need you. They are using you, and you are letting them use you, because you don't know who you are if you aren't mum." By overfunctioning for her adult children, she was crippling them. She was preventing them from growing up. And she was stealing the last productive years of her own life. Jung suggests that the second half of life requires a withdrawal of energy from the collective, the family. The triband, a reinvestment of that energy into the self. This sounds selfish to the good woman, but it is essential. If you do not reclaim your time and your resources now, you never will. You will die with your song unsung, having spent your finale as a stagehand in someone else's play. The consequence is that you leave a legacy of dependency rather than strength. The concrete rule is, self-preservation in the second half of life is not abandonment. It is the only way to model true adulthood for your children. The fifth danger is the most spiritual of all, the fear of the crone. In our modern society, we worship youth. We tell women that their value decreases with every wrinkle. The good woman tries desperately to remain the young woman. She dyes her hair, she undergoes procedures. She pretends she isn't tired, she pretends she doesn't have wisdom that might intimidate people. She tries to stay pleasant and pretty. Jungian psychology embraces the archetype of the crone not as a hag, but as the wise woman. The woman who has seen it all. The woman who no longer cares about pleasing the crowd. The good woman is afraid of the crone, because the crone is powerful. The crone speaks the truth. The crone can be scary, but the crone is who you are meant to become. When you reject your aging, you reject your power. You remain a perpetual daughter, seeking approval. I remember a session with a woman named Brenda, who was terrified of her 65th birthday. She felt she was becoming irrelevant. We worked on reframing her age, not as a loss of beauty, but as an accumulation of authority. The rebellion Jung talks about is the rebellion against the male gaze and the societal demand for female compliance. They affect your entire lineage. If you remain the silent, suffering good woman, what lesson are you teaching your daughters and granddaughters? You are teaching them that being a woman means self-erasure. You are teaching them that love means martyrdom. This is a tragic, emotional legacy. Furthermore, the stress of living inauthentically destroys your health. The cortisol levels of women who habitually suppress their emotions are chronically high. This leads to heart disease, sleep disorders, and cognitive decline. Your body cannot sustain the lie forever. And socially, you risk true intimacy. You cannot be intimate with a partner if you are presenting a mask. If you are always good, you are never real. Real intimacy requires the collision of two authentic people, flaws and all. If you are hiding your shadow, your partner is in a relationship with a mirror, not a woman. So, what is the solution? What does this rebellion look like? It does not mean you have to divorce your husband, burn down your house, and move to an ashram, though for some, drastic changes do happen. For most, the rebellion is internal and subtle. It is the sacred no. The sacred no is the first step of the rebellion. It is looking at a request, whether it's to host Thanksgiving again, to lend money, or to listen to a friend complain for an hour and checking in with your body. Does your body say yes, or does it contract? If it contracts, you say, no, I won't be doing that this time. You don't offer an excuse, you don't apologize, you just set the boundary. The first time you do this, you will feel terrified. You will feel bad. That guilt you feel is just the withdrawal symptom of your addiction to approval. Ride it out. The solution also involves what Jung called active imagination and retrieving the unlived life. Think back to who you were before the world told you who to be. Were you an artist, a writer, a hiker, a fierce debater? Those parts of you are not gone. They are just dormant. The rebellion involves waking them up. Maybe you take that solo trip. Maybe you start a business. Maybe you sleep in a separate bedroom because you value your rest more than the performance of marital availability. There is a concept in modern relationships called living apart together. You have been the architect of everyone else's comfort. But look at the timeline. You have fewer years ahead of you than you have behind you. This is not morbid. It is a call to action. How do you want to be remembered? Do you want your tombstone to read, "She was very nice and never caused a fuss"? Or do you want it to read, "She was fully alive, she spoke her truth, and she loved with a fierce, authentic heart"? The good woman is a flat character. She is two-dimensional, she is boring. The rebellious woman, the integrated woman, is three-dimensional. She is terrifying and beautiful. She is capable of deep, transformative love because she loves from a place of fullness, not a place of deficit. Now, as I promised, we are going to go through a agnostic. I want you to close your eyes for a moment, if it's safe to do so, or just soften your gaze. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. Don't answer them with your brain. Answer them with your gut. Question 1. When your phone rings and you see the name of a family member, is your first physical reaction a smile, or is it a tightening in your chest? Question 2. Do you have secret thoughts, opinions, or desires that you have never shared with your partner because you are afraid they would upset the balance? Question 3. Do you feel a flash of envy when you see a woman who is difficult, loud, or selfish, and then immediately judge her to cover up your envy? Question 4. If you stopped doing everything you do for everyone else today, If you just stopped, would your relationships survive? Or are your relationships entirely dependent on your servitude? Question 5. Are you waiting for permission to live the life you actually want? Who are you waiting for? Your husband? Your parents, who might even be deceased? Your children? God? Question 6. Do you feel guilty when you sit down to do absolutely nothing? If you answered yes or felt a pang of recognition for any of these questions, you are caught in the good woman trap. You are living the provisional life. You are ignoring the call to rebellion. But here is the good news. It is not too late. In fact, you are right on time. Jung believed that this crisis, this feeling of suffocation, is actually a blessing. It is your soul waking you up. It is the knock on the door. The depression, the anxiety, the resentment, these are not symptoms to be medicated away. They are messengers. They are telling you that the good woman is dying, and she needs to die so that you can live. You do not need to blow up your life to save it. But you do need to change the contract. You need to renegotiate the terms of your existence with your husband, your children, and the world. You need to tell them, the woman who served you in silence is gone. I am here now, and I have needs. The people who truly love youth, the people who love you, not just what you do for them, will adjust. They might be shocked at first, but they will respect the new boundaries. You do not need to blow up your life to save it. But you do need to change the contract. You need to renegotiate the terms of your existence with your husband, your children, and the world. You need to tell them, the woman who served you in silence is gone. I am here now, and I have needs. The people who truly love you, the people who love you, not just what you do for them, will adjust. They might be shocked at first, but they will respect the new boundaries. The second half of life is not a decline, it is an ascent. But you cannot climb the mountain carrying the heavy baggage of everyone else's expectations. Drop the bags. Start the rebellion.